Welcome back. I am excited to have an amazing guest here on the podcast, an expert in all things human design maven, or the wizard, or just a master teacher of human design. I've learned so much from him, and yeah, a lot of people have in his journey, and it's time for us to co-create together more illumination, I want to say, with our synergetic energy for human design and the human design system, but also obviously we work with all things astrology, human design, gene keys as well. But our point of reference being Capricorn moons is to really help you understand what's going on over the next 6 months, specifically what your task is right now, and really focusing on Age of Aquarius and like moving out of all of the things that keep us stuck, including sometimes the system of human design or the system of astrology, where people are just like so caught up in their stories, where we are really here to say, hey, Pluto moves into Aquarius, like it's time for you to free yourself from all of that shit. We have so much Gemini energy, get rid of the stories, all the mental overload that keeps you trapped in loopholes, including your own conditioning. We want to help you move out of that. And the conversation today will be basically about that. And let's see where we're going to move. Because usually when we meet and talk, Dylan and I, then it's basically rabbit holes and rabbit holes and rabbit holes, which is exciting. So get a cup of tea or some shilajit or whatever you want to have and get ready.
Here we go.
Yes.
Hi, Kathy. Nice to be back.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's definitely a new era in terms of so many things. And as you were introducing our conversation today, I was really feeling that this flurry of the Gemini stellium we're having right now is a gift in an unexpected way because all this energy is going into Gemini, which is the kind of base sign of our mind. It's like it's the third sign, so it's still a very primary kind of baby energy in a way, but it is the starting point of the development of our mental body. And so when we have so much energy and all these planets going into Gemini, we're getting to see how much of a mess our mind is. And that's actually a good kind of litmus test for the work that has to be done to get us to the place where we can actually perceive clearly, because I believe it's our birthright and ultimate evolutionary goal to be conduits of pure consciousness, not people looping in these very scattered, old, unoriginal stories that kind of keep us locked into karmic grids, karmic timelines, and you know, Groundhog Day vibe. Same shit, different day. And it seems like it's cool and exciting, but it's only because it's tickling your trauma. And we don't really need that in the Aquarian age. We're on to something else and we're here to start a new fractal. So today we're kind of just starting there, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And, there's this Jupiter moving into Gemini and all the Gemini energy, Gemini. It's like literally the entire cosmos is pointing towards how distracted we sometimes are. And easily we are being distracted from our own truth and core because of the narratives that we see outside, news, the next news. And then it's this entire, like our nervous system being so primed to overstimulation and to dopamine hit and like social media and like what's up, like all the things we are supposed to know now, right? In order to be informed or whatever. Well, do you need the information? It's actually feeding your energetic blueprint and your dharma or your purpose or what you are here to do, or is it distracting you? Like it's overstimulating you, including not just what's from the outside, but also inside, like the stories that your mind keeps coming up, and where it's like you need to heal this corner and this corner, and then you need to do that. Why? Like if we just focus on, okay, this is my energetic potential, and if I know that now, these stories keep me trapped from actually actualizing that, like from actually doing something with it, from creating something instead of like consuming what someone else has created, or consuming and over like I feel like I get the sense of like digesting over and over again something that has already been digested in your system, right?
Right.
But
It's
it's
kind of like
oh
Frankenstein.
yeah,
It's like we're picking all these pieces up of these stories that have already died. You know, they really don't have any life left in them, any true life force, right? And our assumption from our more superficial ego mind is that, oh, all this stuff is important because it makes me relevant, because it gives me an identity, it gives me a direction, it gives me importance, a purpose, a title, a stature, you know. So I can tell people what I think I'm doing so that they can confirm my existence for me. And what
yeah,
we're doing is we're stitching together all these pieces of dead stuff that's already bygone and trying to bring it back to life. And then it just keeps toppling over and dying again. And we're like, oh, why didn't that feel good? Why wasn't that the satisfaction that I was going for? Why am I not more authentically driven to pursue this? Why do I keep having to force myself into the next phase, the next iteration? It's because somewhere in our consciousness or our soul or, you know, our spiritual awareness, we're feeling that these things are just like tattered. They're like disintegrating. And what's left is, like you were saying, our true energetic potential, like what we actually are. And this is something like if we look at it from a human design perspective, you've got your personality side, you've got your design side, and then who you are is a juxtaposition of both. But most people are living just on the personality level, mostly just from the mind. And that mind is giving them this illusion of control that is kind of like a hamster wheel. You know, there's this feeling like we're doing something, but yet we're not actually digging into the deeper, true depth of who we are, what we are. And and I think that this is a time where we're getting to almost this point of we had to just wear ourselves out so that we could be ready for something a little bit more spiritually mature, if that makes sense.
absolutely. You know, while you were speaking, what I really got is this whole when speech develops, or, you know, basically we put in like the narrative or the mind and language and words and all of these things, it's similar to that's when we start writing the script for our lives, right?
Hmm.
So before that, there was no script. So you were instinctual, Aries, very much like connected to your body, Taurus, and then this Gemini happens, and all of a sudden you have a plot for your life, like a script, you know. Sometimes, I mean,
Hmm.
most of the time it's the, you know, obviously influenced by parents, culture, everything. And so you keep like playing this role and identify yourself with that specific script. But actually, I even said it to my client the other day. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio always being just the Titanic guy, you know, and like missing out
Typecast.
on, yeah, same thing. And like so over it already. No one wants to see him in Titanic anymore because everyone is like, well, Inception is so much better for you. Like, you know, and he would have missed out on being fucking amazing in Inception, whatever. Or, you know, I mean, take any actor. And we are so fixated on basically the narrative or the character we are in the plot, instead of like saying like, no, actually I don't even like the plot anymore. I don't like to watch that movie every single day. Why do I do that, you know? Because
Right.
with my energetic potential, I could be so many different characters I haven't even explored yet, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm like keep myself in this loop of, no, that's me and that identifies me, and also the trauma. And it's like the fear at some point to explore if I could be something else as well.
And it's really interesting to me that during this Gemini stellium, Gemini being this communicative sign, air sign, um, social media has been more quiet than it has in a long time. you would expect looking up at these transits, like, oh my God, everybody's going to be popping off with these new ideas and talking and, kind of telling their new story. But I feel that because we're so bored with our old character, but we're not brave enough to actually take a bite into the new narrative or the new possibilities, we're kind of just at this holding pattern right now. So many people, especially in the spiritual community, are just kind of like, eh, like there's no actual energy there. But what's funny is in that void of recapitulating the same old stories, it's actually an opportunity for our real energy to speak for itself. And where does our actual innate biological energy, at the very least, want to be, and what does it want to be doing? And I had a friend reach out on Instagram today saying, yeah, I've never been, I mean, this is one of the most quiet times I've been on social media. She's a projector, but I've gotten so many opportunities. And it's because like in the void of the shallow mental kind of recitation of who we think we are, her actual energy could actually reach out into the ethers and pull in things that were actually part of a more compelling story for her. So at this moment, I just feel like, you know, the conditioning goes so deep, and a lot of it is a part of this tribal, conditioning around resources and money and survival. And it's like if we don't stay true to the character that's kept us safe in terms of survival, are we going to survive? Are we ever going to be successful as this other character that we want to try out? And it reminds me of my unconscious Pluto placement, which is gate 1, line 3, the energy to sustain creative work. But Ra would always speak about how this line, being a third line, a very mutative line, had a dilemma because it might, as a third line, bump into that thing that makes it money in the world's eye, but then it doesn't get to keep experimenting and mutating like it's designed to. And so these people get stuck doing the thing that made them the money, even though they have this creative potential to be almost limitless in how they transform. And I really feel like that's where a lot of us are right now. We're playing this game that's not giving us any vibes. The phoenix is not rising. And that means we kind of have to burn some shit down to get to the next chapter.
I feel that I mean, I love that you brought that into context too. It's not just, when we usually talk about going out of the matrix and like, all of the whatever, it's we think, or like we have this bias, I want to say, especially in the spiritual community, where they are like, we are already out of it, but actually they're so trapped in their own like, identification with this is what I'm doing like in spiritual service, but you can see there's no joy and there's no whatever. And I mean, I've plugged myself out since last year and I felt like I can't come back in the same way. And didn't know yet like how I'm going to come back or what I'm even going to do, which I have more clarity now, but it's still not clear. So I'm just like riding the waves. Yes, it's shaky, but that's also what we have to do with like on all levels globally. I feel it's a collective thing that is going on because we can't even grasp right now how the world will be in a few years because stuff
Right.
is still dying and we have to see and be really flexible, Gemini, with how it's going to move us and what it actually will require from us. The highest expression of anything human design gene keys, it's about, okay, I always bring that analogy of the energetic cards are being reshuffled because if you think of us as this grand penta that builds, then it's like, okay, you have that energetic potential. Let me place you here for a second, right? And then I don't know, in a month from now, you need to be placed here with your energy. It's not logic. It's energetic synergy where you need to hold your vibration here for a minute or here for a minute because you're a vibrational match. And so we can't, I mean, we move out of the cross of planning. We can't plan for that. Life just takes you, it's I love how Ibrahim Karim from Biogeometry, he explained it really well, that the difference between humans and plants and animals is very much that And you can see that when you watch, yeah, animals. They they are basically influenced, or they live in alignment with nature, with God, with source, whatever you want to say, right? With the higher intelligence, because they don't have a mind that tells them, oh, you should better go here, or you should, they are very much instinctual, which is also how the race will be, where it's like, no, like I'm not going to be following what some mental fucking story is going to tell me. That's why they might seem like ADHD, autism, whatever, because they're just like, no, my energy right now wants to go there. I'm going to go there, like, why
Yeah.
not? Because my only purpose in this life is to follow my energy, or where the energy directs me. And nature teaches us, well, if we do that, there's actually harmony, beauty, everything is taken care of. Plants are growing, plants are sometimes also dying when they need to, but it's all in harmony. And we are not like working against the harmony of nature. And we ourselves do that because of, again, the conditioning and all of these things, because we think we need more, or we think we need that. But actually, and that's also gate 60, what if we trust that the resources we need in the moment will be there wherever we are being taken, instead of like planning so much that we have everything or whatever. It's this entire, and we're going to talk about that Capricorn restructuring with, the full moon at 1 degrees and then at 29 degrees in Cancer season. So it's like, what gives you really that stability, that home, that safety that you want in Cancer season, or in general in your life, right? Maybe it's not all of the planning and all of, is it really serving you, or is it giving you less life quality, less nurturing, less like really feeling safe, to
It's
be honest?
where, yeah, it's actually what creates the lack. As
Exactly.
you're saying all this, I'm really seeing it clearly like a movie playing out before me. It's this overemphasis on adherence to this pattern that we believe will give us safety and survival and ensure our, next breath or our next day in the world. And yet it's that very thing that is cutting us off from opening ourselves to moving in concert with the cosmos, which are inherently, by their nature, in a state of balance and order. And that's where we all come from. And this is actually the essence of what the traditional I Ching wants to teach people, is how to drop all of the games that they're playing with themselves and their egos and their conditioning, and fall back into the fact that because you are a creation of the cosmos, you have the same natural order and connection to that universal law built into every cell. But it's your own mental overlay or your own self importance that keeps you cut off from your true abundance and the source of true abundance, which is, the universe. So it also makes me think of, in variable in human design, which is talking about our certain setup of our mind, our brain, our cognition, our awareness, and our body. Are we more strategic and focused? Are we more receptive and kind of multidimensional? We've lived in a very strategic era since we were seven-centered beings predating the 1615 shift into the cross of planning. Um, and the thing with logic and focus and strategy is that it's great at controlling the narrative. It's great at maintaining survival, it seems, but because it's so focused, it misses everything else. It's only able to perceive its one super skill that it's super, invested in. Whereas the more receptive consciousness, which is where we're headed, that's what the raves will be. They'll be 100% receptive. They're in connection with all things. They have a deep, real depth, a sense of awareness of all things. And it's through that they have access to all things. So they're not missing anything, but it's just going to look very nonlinear to a logically conditioned mind. So this upcoming transit, this little bundle of interesting transit, like to the degree that we're going to talk about and look at, is really a reflection of this big opportunity, as I would see it as a fourth line opportunist, to really consciously and preemptively rewire ourselves to be able to hold this new operating system, even though it's not new at all. It's always been there. But because of the specific alignments with Capricorn and Pluto and some of the lunations that are happening, it's like the universe is giving us this sweet little window to drop all the charades that we think are saving our asses and get back into connection with not only our innate energy and its divine intelligence, and use that as a conduit to reconnect to the soul of the cosmos, which wants to see you thriving in abundance and totally expressed as the divine creation you are, not just ultra invested in the 0.1% of your consciousness that you think is going to keep you alive. So we're kind of getting to have this, it almost feels like an unofficial retrograde in a way.
I mean, Pluto's
And
red.
right, there's that. And you will keep us factual with all the astrological stuff. But it feels like we're giving this chance to go back into the Capricorn department of kind of like energy management, and reallocate and redesign or just undesign maybe, um, the way that energy flows mentally, metaphysically, physically, physiologically, spiritually, and kind of let this greater order come back into focus that keeps us more innocent and open to what real evolution looks like, as opposed to a really well rehearsed survival set of skills.
And you know, it's of course we're going retrograding in a way, or it feels retrograde because it really brings us back to what the fuck have we actually been doing for the last 4 years? Like
Yeah.
Saturn, Pluto met in Capricorn. I feel like we've been so caught. I mean, we've done a lot of work. I want to not, negate that, but I feel like still we are in this like fog or maybe even trauma response or shock that the world could actually change like that in a second. Which also showed us that, it's an illusion to hold on to these structures that we think would keep us safe or would, give us a structure when it's like crumbling in a second. And it's very interesting to see that, again, we have the full moon in 1 degree and a 29 degree, and then the new moon in the middle in Cancer will have Venus, right, goddess of creation and beauty and harmony, at the exact opposite point where we had the Saturn Pluto conjunction. So it's like, okay, how can you actually create that harmony, that beauty, but within yourself, in your own sphere, not tied to the external world? And then going into already 2025, because the next new moon will be at basically the last day of this year. And then the new moon in Cancer is literally happening at 23 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, sorry. So that means, again, opposite the Saturn Pluto conjunction point. So it's just like, hey, we're really here to, if you haven't heard the call now, to tell you that, it's very Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto in a sense too. You need to make sure that you take care of your own structure and build your own structure and like really take that responsibility for your life and for your energetic blueprint, and not be like, well, I'm born into this family and into this culture and into this conditioning. And even, I mean, I said it to Dylan before, sometimes you get too personified with even your character in the human design system or in the gene keys, and I have this and that's my permission now to act out the trauma, and
Right.
to be in this healing loop all the time, instead of seeing, like, when I work with gene keys, I always look at the highest expression. With the astrology too, like, why would I need to look at the shadow? Yes, sometimes to check if I'm not falling into it, okay. But then it's like, don't be fixated too much in like, I need to heal the trauma, I need to all of that, which in the same way we can see as a reflection in the collective, where it's like the focus being directed always to, this is still awful, there's still war, there's still this, and we need to make sure that yes, we have to kind of be informed maybe for it, but it's more about, can we create alternatives instead of like constantly focusing on what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed, and all of these things. I think it's really for us to step into what nature would do, what God would do. It's like create an alternative so people can go towards that side. Because if there is no alternative, it's harder for the less courageous people, I want to say, to even change anything. Because then it's easier to say, well, I'm not in a position yet because I don't have the alternative. The void is too scary, right? And then let me just like go into the old narratives again because at least I know.
Right. That comfortable familiarity of the same old narratives that, again, it's like your traumatized ancestors that lived through a war that gave them a sense of solidarity to be suffering. I'm not like victim shaming anybody at all. I'm just saying it's a tactic that our mental body will use to find orientation within chaos, perceived chaos, even though there's a greater order. And just like we were talking about how Pluto in 0 degrees of Aquarius is gate 60, line 5, which is the keynote of leadership. And in the 29th degree of Capricorn, it's gate 60, line 4, with the keynote of resourcefulness. So these final degrees of the bridge from the age of Capricorn and all its hierarchical codependency to the age of Aquarius and its self-empowered interdependency relies upon us, gate 60, building new structures out of a sense of 60 line 4, resourcefulness, and line 5, leadership. And ever since the Great Conjunction happened in gate 60, line 5, in 2021, I want to say, I knew that the next 20 years, whoever had the leadership within them to be the innovators of the systems that would be the bridge to the new era, the alternatives, would be the ones that would be naturally selected as leaders. So, and that's just how the world works. Like there are not everybody's an alpha. Not everybody's here and built to go on that leading edge and take a risk in a new direction that's seemingly never been taken before. But that is the most important essential duty of any awake person in this time, is to actually be doing things yourself. Because when the end of the cross of planning hits, every atom of energy that's been animated in the style of collective systems, infrastructure, governments, all these things that are collective organizing forces, the plug is pulled. There's nobody that's going to be there to do that stuff. And I've talked about this before, and I've seen people in the comments be like, well, we need to manifest that it won't be so hard and bad. And it's like, well, that's not really it. That's magical thinking, and that's not going to help either. It's not about trying to stop the collapse of something that's going to collapse, because death is a part of nature. Like you said, things have to die. And the experiences I've had with death in my own life on a very personal level have showed me that when something or someone dies, it reorganizes the matrix in such an unimaginable and beautiful way. And I've had, luckily, like the deeper sight to actually see how that's happening and not just see the loss. And I think that even though what we're going to see is a lot of the comfort of this era dwindle away, and what we've identified with as what is preferable to us in these bodies in this lifetime, in this economy, in this governmental structures, it's going to reorganize this matrix in a way that is unfathomably beautiful, because it's going to free up so much energy to come back into alignment with the cosmic order. And so that's where we need to be focusing. We need to be thinking with the mind of the universe, with the cosmos, and be cognitively open to that kind of inspiration, so that we can co-create these new alternatives, which are just waiting in the ethers to drop in. But do we have the space? Do we have the capacity? Do we have, this is where this whole this unofficial or semi-official retrograde comes in. We've got to create the space in our narratives and in our mental patterns to actually be open to receiving this stuff. Any one of us could be the next Nikola Tesla if we had enough space in our being, in our mind, and disconnected enough from all this programming bullshit. It's all it is, because nobody is truly the origin of their brilliance. Everybody that's ever created something that changed the world in a better way, they are just the receptor for that. That's just what we are. And that's what human design also shows and teaches us in a very humbling and beautiful way. It's like, there is no choice. It's not up to us.
Yeah, it's
And
like you got these energetic cards, as I like to say, from the cosmos, and like step out of your own persona for a second and your own, like, this is what I want, whatever, and really understand that your energetic blueprint is needed somewhere in order to function, like in order for nature to be in harmony, because you wouldn't exist right now in this body and carrying these energetic imprints if there was not a space for you, or like a need or necessity for you. As soon as that's not given anymore, you're not needed, literally you die. That's how nature works, it's, I mean, yeah, we can think about all the longevity things that we can do to sustain. But if there's no reason anymore for you to be energized in this body, literally you will be zapped out. Like your heart won't beat anymore, because what beats, what makes your heart beat? What makes you breathe? All of these things we take for granted. It's like actually nature working through you all the time. And why do we not trust that, nature will give us everything that we need, that we have the resources, as I said before, that we need, and we are now in this, I think, amazing era where we witness how destructive it is to constantly think we are better than nature, or we can work over nature, right? Like, yeah, override nature and the laws of nature instead of working with them in harmony. It's really wild. And I love that we have the systems like human design, gene keys, astrology to guide us back to, resetting all of that fucking bullshit, and to come back to the basics, to say, hey, wait a second, this is what I have as an energetic potential. What am I going to do with it? And then not necessarily deciding with the mind, because obviously there's no decision in the mind. It's more like, okay, where am I driven to go to? Which the raves, I mean, maybe they will be our teachers, but literally we have to prepare the world for them to exist here, to have that space and that freedom to just be who they are meant to be instinctual, to really, like animals and like flowers, be wherever they are needed to be. And I think what also is really dying here, or needs to die, is also our, what you mentioned, that codependency. And I mean, we still have the South Node in Libra, where it's like, no, you can't just stay somewhere because of the relationships and, the stories around that, and the trauma and the wounds and all of these things. It's just like distraction. It might sound very Capricorn moon cold when I say this, but it's
yeah,
this, like, it's also what ties us in our solar plexus in a way, and like bonds us. And it's just this, like, love is free. Let's just say that, if it's really
right,
a loving relationship, it will maintain and sustain wherever you are driven to go by nature.
right.
That makes
Yeah, love is free, and you know, love is the self-organizing principle that all energy bows to. And so, true love is not what we've been shown and taught, because a lot of what we call love is actually tribal, and tribal circuitry and human design and tribal ideology and tribal law is about self-sacrifice, and it's about stickiness, and it's about making a promise to the larger group that you'll always be a certain way. And that's the only way that in the past, perhaps, we were able to survive, is everybody kept their bond, their bargain. I'm the hunter, you're the fisherman, she's the agriculturist, whatever. And if anybody slips up, we're all going to die. And that's where so much of the conditioning around relationships comes from in our modern world, is survival. But if it's really love that the relationship is based on, then it's timeless, it's has no location, it's quantum, it's free, like you said, and it's dynamic, and just asking to be constantly transformed. Gate 25, the gate of universal love. It's across the channel from the gate of shock. It's always open to being shocked into a new form. That's just how it works. But this tribal pact and this tribal bondage of sacrifice is really what keeps us stuck to a lot of these associations, stories, occupations, etc. Because survival still is such a vivid trauma to the conscious mind. And it's really kind of an oxymoron, or it's like a, you know, what's the right word for that? Something like an oxymoron, catch 22 or whatever. Um, it's
Yeah, it's keeping you
ironic.
in this loop again, right?
Yeah.
It's looping you into same karmic stories to clear shit up, so you're being brought to the same people, and it's again, it's this whole, you reincarnate in the same fucking makeup to make shit up from the past, but then it's like, how many rounds do we want to take, you know?
How many rounds do we want to cling to our binky and keep coming back to the same little like 7 by 7 grid of the same 100 souls and the same dramas and the same karmas? It's like we need to, again, open ourselves up to be more like that free particle, that free waveform that's available to the cosmic logos to be able to respond, take the invitation, initiate something based on what the larger ecosystem of consciousness is asking for, not just what we think is going to keep us safe. And it is a struggle. I've had this struggle many times of the larger epic, prophecy level choice in my life feeling really intimidating and really like bad timing. And are there enough resources? And, there's all these considerations of like, can we do it? And will it work out? And is this actually, are we just being crazy? And then you show up for it and it's way better than you imagined. And you still get to keep a lot of the connections that you have. It's not like, you know, that's where the abundance is, I think, is realizing that by opening up to more, it may seem like we're having to let go of a lot, but actually by opening up to more, we just get more and more, and we still have the ability to retain what we've had too in a different way, perhaps, but there's not as much loss as the ego would like us to believe.
Yeah, it absolutely, most of the time we are just, or the mind lets us be more afraid, or like tells us these stories that this person would leave or whatever. But it's just, no, the relationship as it is now might die, but as you said, the death could mean like transforming into something different. It's a transitioning, maybe it's an even better relationship or a different dynamic, whatever, and we can't just let that hold us back any longer. Like we really don't have the energetic capacity for that anymore. I feel that so strongly since Pluto moved into Aquarius. It's like, and also with Saturn and Pisces, take responsibility for why you came here. You didn't come here just for your own personal little life. Actually, we have to think more tribal and global moving forward. It's like and sometimes I feel crazy too saying that, but the planet needs you, that's what I keep saying to myself, like the planet needs you, the entire fucking collective, like get over your own bullshit for a second. Because it's not about me, little me all the time. Your needs are being met by you thinking about the bigger picture, actually.
Yeah. And like you were saying, it's an interesting time to consider, not to sound morbid or threatening, but like if you are going to stay on that safe little timeline, there may not be a real need for you in the very near
Exactly.
future, and
Looking,
your
I mean,
timeline might end.
I sometimes, I said, I don't know if I'm actually mentioned it in a podcast before, but whatever, I'm just saying it because people need to reflect on it. If nature and Gaia and everything is moving and shifting, and we have the heads up of what's coming, we can look into the stars and we see what needs to die. And so we already witnessed a lot of deaths the last 4 years. And I don't only want to blame specific fluids or whatever. I also see that, it's nature's way of making sure that whatever energy is not working in accordance to nature is being zapped out.
Yeah.
Because why would we need something that pollutes the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a cleanup that happens on many different levels. And so, yeah, they're really thinking if you're not doing the thing you do or you're meant to do, you will maybe suffer or you will be zapped out. It doesn't always have to be illness. It can be like something hitting you from fucking heaven.
Yeah. So it's a very real time in our experience here. I feel like we should maybe tie it to a couple pieces of the astrology to bring it back down to the temporal context that we're looking at over the next month and the next 6 months, because it's a very fascinating dance that's happening.
Yeah.
Would you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. And then also speak about, our intention even for having this conversation, because it's very much, I like to say, cosmic poetry, how we have the solstice, right? Now, next week, basically, on the 21st. And then 22nd, we have straight up the first full moon at 1 degrees of Capricorn. So it's the starting releasing point that we have in that Capricorn area, but it's almost like starting to free up some space in that area so we can already work through what we want to implement. And with that new awareness that we have, since like we shifted so much over the last 4 years, I feel like so many of us have so much more clarity around, okay, this is what I want to build, this is what I want to create for myself, this is the safety that I want to see in the world. And it's about us stepping into that role now and releasing anything that still holds us back. And we have the new moon in Cancer 2 weeks later, again with Venus at 22 Capricorn, Cancer, opposite that Capricorn shit that we have dismantled, which by the way is also the Pluto integration point, is the opposite side always. So it's like our soul is really working with us, like really giving us direction. And actually going into that, Pluto being retrograde, it's like the safety that you are asking for in the outside world, tap in and you will get the direction. Like anyone who tells me that they don't know what to do, or like that they feel like, it's like just too they are just not listening enough. They're really not listening enough to their own being and guidance, and are too oversaturated by the mind and the mental stories, which again is also something I think will be really important in Cancer season, to really go back inward and like connect. And then at the end of Cancer season, literally last day, we have 29 Capricorn, that last release, and next day shifting into the Leo season, which is obviously creativity, leadership, it's heart-centeredness. It's like, what am I here to actually do with my inner fire? I get the fire from the cosmos to bring up some heat into the circuits of everyone with my creativity, with what I can create and alchemize, right? Also with fire. And how do I do that? Like, what am I actually going to do? And the highest expression of Capricorn to me is always thinking about the legacy that I actually want to leave behind. We always talk about Capricorn being this entire, matrix and stuckness and like responsibility and Saturn. It's actually like, what have you learned? Saturn, Capricorn, learning, right? How did you become a master in something over the last 4 years, right? And from that, what's the legacy for the collective that this actually represents? Because then through your mastery, you can create something that will become the legacy. Everyone had some specific theme or thing to work through over the last 4 years, and there's a reason for it. It's like, that's actually the legacy you want to leave behind, the medicine, the whatever the entire cosmos needs. But it's us
And it's
actually,
these,
yeah.
yeah, and it's these very bridges that we're speaking about.
Yeah.
It's like all this stuff that surfaced for you is the primary material for you to innovate this new path into the next
These
thing.
are actually the resources, you know?
Yeah,
Like if everyone, like if anyone here still asks themselves, like, what's my purpose? What am I actually gonna do? Like, do I have to study my entire human design chart in order to find out? Well, maybe look at what nature gave you the last 4 years to work through.
ooh, that is powerful to think about and
Yeah.
feel about.
Because people just want to run away from it. Like, no, that's actually something I want. Yes, you want to leave it behind in a way where you are still emotionally like held captive by the story, right? But I mean, Chiron in fucking Aries, North Node in Aries, it's like, yeah, we have these wounds, right? Chiron wounded healer, but the wound is always the medicine, not just
Right.
for you, but for
And
everyone.
by reverse engineering that, there you have the medicine that you're here to contribute.
Yeah.
So that's a very compelling thing to kind of look at the next 6 months because it's really to me, it feels like the next 6 months with, Pluto dipping back into Capricorn and for the last time in our lifetime, last time before 2027.
I want to emphasize on that. Like literally, it's not when no, it's the last time in general this year, because next year Pluto will be all in Aquarius.
Yeah,
So
this
it's
is
like
it.
this literally is it. Like it's such a historical thing, and people are just sleeping on it. You know,
They're
like oh
they're
yeah,
ostriching
yeah,
their head in the sand, but this is the integration point of this entire journey of the great, as I would like to call it, the great liquidation of karma that started with 2020. And it's like, for me, such amazing gifts of awareness have come from this and a lot of hard to integrate pieces. But now that we're at a pretty stable place right now. I mean, it's not like it once was. And I think I've also seen a lot of people kind of making a big deal out of stuff that's not actually a big deal because, again, it's like it's how we self-identify, it's how we give ourselves meaning is the struggle. And that's what's going to make you miss the boat is by getting so caught up in identifying with the struggle and how tough your karma is and how weird and out of sorts you feel. That is your direct communication from your higher self of how disconnected you are from where you're actually meant to be going and what you're actually meant to be implementing. And that's the other gift of this Gemini stellium is like it's potentially showing us how to use all this stuff that we've picked up along the way. We have these ancient artifacts that we, dug out of the karma. We have these higher self, higher sense perception abilities that we're amazed by, but maybe they're not as practical as they could be in their application. Gemini wants to teach us how to actually do something practical and effective with all this stuff. And so as we move into Cancer, that Cancer, one of the keywords for me for Cancer is production. And I think that that's where I mean, it's reproduction, right? But it's also kind of, if you had a magic item that you could create, if you figured out how to use it and write the instruction manual in Gemini, then you would go to mass production in the factory in Cancer, and then you could distribute it to all the people that need it. So this 6 month integration window with this final opening of the Capricorn vaults, and Capricorn rules the structure of not just the mundane material world, but the structure of the ecosystem of nature, the structure of the ecosystem of the cosmos. That's gate 61, that's gate 60. These, they're the highest and the lowest in the human design body graph. They're at the individual circuit, the base and the root, and at the very top in the crown. And they are the entry and access points to the mechanics deep within this Maya. So as these vaults open one last time in this Pluto retrograde, we're given a chance to really make it all make sense and bring forth the alchemical gold, if you will, from all the dross that the karma of the past brought us. All that stuff was not just to necessarily not just to feel it to heal it, but to bring back the pieces of all these different stories that were actually meant to be taken forward and repurposed and re-engineered as a solution or bridge or alternative for the future. So this is such an amazing, we're still in a dragon year. We're still moving with a degree of epic legacy energy that I think also a lot of people are sleeping on because it's overwhelming to have 1 year to kind of maybe it's just 1 year to set up your legacy for the rest of your life in this certain way. And so we put our head in the sand. So we go to bed.
Yeah.
And to finally underscore all this, I feel like it's this next 6 months. This is your legacy building time to bring it all back up, make sense of it all, take what's going to actually serve the future, really concretize that, crystallize that into something of true value, and then probably spend the rest of our time here sharing from that place, serving from that place, whatever that may be for you. So
Yeah,
it's,
absolutely. I love it. I mean, I love that you brought in the aspect of the dragon year because it ties into even more, that entire legacy piece, like to really reflect, and it might feel overwhelming, but if I die tomorrow, did I leave something significant behind? And if the answer is still no, you know, then, well, think about the timing in your life that you incarnated now. It's not just to fill the air, right?
yeah,
There is a higher reason, you know. That's what we have to really consider specifically. And I always want to say that there are people that just fill the air. But if you are listening to this podcast, you're interested in these topics, that's probably some higher energy telling you that you are maybe one of the people that chose to incarnate for something else than spiritual entertainment, let's just say, you
yeah,
know. And I mean, I have gate 7 leadership support anyways, and very strong in my chart. I felt that too, like where I just felt like I can't work with people anymore and just working on their trauma. I want to support people that have higher visions, that really create
hmm,
ripple effects. I'm done with like taking care of like your band-aids and here and there and trying to help you remove it in the most smoothest way. No, like let's just like see you in a healed space, right? Free from all that gunk from the past, and let's move you on your throne, wherever you are meant to be, the throne, the lighthouse, however you want to say that. And it might be very 6 line energy from us, but you have that too, where it's like, no, we are done with like, being a nurse, spiritually speaking.
absolutely. I've had that shift over the past 4 weeks and really formally building these boundaries to people who need that kind of nursing, because it's my legacy to put people on their throne. And I've always known that. Before I even knew that, I knew that. Um, and it's it's really cool. It's really exciting. I'm really happy about it. And you said it very, very well. So I appreciate that. Um, I'm speechless.
Speechless. That's rare. No, I actually wanted to tie it back to, also what we had in mind or envisioned for the next 6 months to offer for anyone who
Hmm.
feels like I'm ready for the throne. So maybe you can speak a little bit about that aspect and why it ties in so perfectly with like also the timing. I mean, we went deep into the timing of the next 6 months, but I really feel that strong call collectively to also see that there is not one throne, you know? We
Of
think like, oh,
course.
there's one leader, one throne. No, it's actually we need many different, replace throne with light bulbs, like the beacons of like the brightest light you can be, highest vibration in that sense. And we need that all across the globe in order to form that elevated web of or structure, right?
It's the new grids.
Yeah, the new grid.
And these thrones are basically the nodes on the new grid. So they need to be cosmically ordained and organically distributed in a pattern that is self-fulfilling and illuminating. And that's why this container, like, literally snuck up on you and I, brought us back together into conversation, and nudged us perfectly into this time range because we were trying to do this from our mental body at a much earlier time and do it in a way that we were used to doing things and kind of like scramble it all together because we felt the immensity of it. But now we've come into alignment with it. And so what we have is basically, it's an intensive, it's a 6 month intensive that's really drawing upon all of our individual superpowers as tools and support for individuals who are ready to make leaps and bounds towards their legacy projects this year. We've been preparing you for Dragon Year since we could see it within range, and still we have half of it left to take advantage of an energy that respects mostly those who will stand and be counted. If you're playing small in a Dragon Year, Dragon will be like, okay, you can sink to the bottom.
You're
And
eaten
if
by
you're
it.
right, just used as firewood, whatever. And so then we have the alternative, which is if you take to the sky and fly with the dragon, you can learn to ride your dragon. You can train your dragon and you can fly to a literal new echelon of your own personal standard for yourself. And you can see things from there that you could never see before. And that gives you capacity and agency that you did not have before. So it's like the bold, what is that saying? Fortune favors the bold. It's the best statement for this year. We have a container that's coming into creation that's for people who are ready to boldly step into their legacy level project or initiative or just ideology or self concept, who are ready to somewhat ruthlessly drop the limiting beliefs and stories. A big part of what we're offering is actually a precision forgetting. It's like an intentional release of pieces of ourselves. And it's a re-architecturing, kind of the best of what we're here to do, create, solve, be, stand for, and share. And it's basically it's like one of those car washes where they have all the different features and you go through and you receive all the different like treatments to your car. And then by the end, you're shiny and sparkly and ready for a whole new journey. That's how
It's
I
a
would describe
fucking
it.
perfect analogy because I mean, what is your body? It's the vehicle of your soul, right? So it's perfect because we literally car wash you cellularly, like literally cellularly, for the next 6 months, while also helping you build or like, set up new things wherever you have been clearing. And we will start very timely, perfect with the second full moon in Capricorn, which happens to be in a conjunction with Pluto. And as I said before, also has the sun basically at 0 Leo. So it's like, yeah, we are still purging, but also we are creating at the same time. So that's what these 6 months are really all about. It's like, we're not saying that everyone needs to be completely clear and like healed in order to step into that leadership position. It's more like, okay, looking at what has the story been for you and how can we alchemize and transmute that, vaporize, I want to say, because we will work a lot with like gases and like hydrogen and like, the creation and all of these fun aspects that we just don't really think about, like how is manifestation even happening, how formation happens, how nature works, like all of these things. because it's working inside of you, right? How can I rejuvenate myself? How can I create a new template and narrative inside of my cells? How can I, direct my cells in a way they form and like attract things, like magnetize things towards me? And all of that will be a beautiful journey to basically, Gemini, a new perception about life and how you create life from your own power and self-empowerment, and the energetic power that you actually carry inside. It might still lie dormant, we've heard that before, the junk DNA, whatever you may say, there is no junk DNA. Nature doesn't create junk for what reason, right? Why would you create junk? So tapping into all of that. And at the same time, I think what I always love about containers like that is speaking about the environment that it creates for you. It's also very Gemini, but we have to consider that we are in a container with other people with the same energetic intention. You're literally surrounded for 6 months by people who are over their bullshit, quote unquote, even if they are not fully, right? But like intentionally, they are over their bullshit. They are ready for the throne. And what that does to your energy, it's like I'm believing more and more and more, right? And going into resonance energetically with people that are on the throne. It's about resonance and synergy. That the future of healing will also be, we talked about that many times, Dylan and I, just sometimes sitting next to someone who carries that frequency inside already. It's the
That
resonance.
association, the auric association, will select that kind of bass tone in your own potential, and then allow you to play the melodies and harmonies that will create that new timeline or that new fractal. So this is basically for somebody who is ready to step up to the helm of their legacy period, whatever that is for you, who's looking for intentional, energetic, and also ideological and systemic support in a container that's going to really plant you in a whole new garden of possibilities. And we are here to help you grow into your full potential. And we have so many really cool pieces to this that are directly from our own journeys, that it isn't just about reading charts. It isn't just about systems. It's about literal quantum artifacts that were specifically given to us because of the risks that we took and the bold moves that we made to be in specific places and around certain people at certain times. And now we get to share all these things with you. And a big piece of this, to underscore it, I would say, is that we are, as a species, we're moving out of resonance with this suppressed lunar matrix, and we're moving into coherence with the solar energy. So it is kind of perfect with that 0-degree Leo. It's like the whole intention here is putting a boundary over the fact that we are coming into and rising into resonance with the solar logos, and dropping away and dropping out the density of the lunar matrix and those lower affiliations that keeps us connected in with. So
yeah, and that's a piece, if anyone doesn't know what we are talking about, definitely gonna have Dylan back. And obviously in our container, we will talk a lot about that lunar and solar hijacking that has been happening, which is very connected also to the solar plexus, to, our splenic awareness and all of these things. And obviously at the end of the day, of our inner connection to the source, which has always been the great central sun, right? The sun. And if the sun is not shining and you're not connected to the sun, guess what your life will be, and most of us live in this sun deprived, we all talk about vitamin D deficiency. Like, where does it come from? Why do you feel like there's no electricity, no fire in me? Well, guess what? You're not plugged into the sun. And plugging into that sun, that infinite source, literally always shining, guess what you will do? And I'm going to leave it with that because we are already like speaking for a long time. So if you can't get enough, we'll have Dylan back. And obviously, it's been almost around the corner that we will start with the Leo season and obviously the second full moon. Probably we'll have Dylan back for the new moon in Cancer, maybe. We'll see. However, the timing is going to, because we're not planning. But yeah, if you would like to have more information about what's going to come from both of us in the container, then either message me or him on Instagram, or yeah, all the links will be down below in the show notes, or also in, yeah, with the comments on YouTube. And we will get you some of the information. We'll put more out there over the next few days and weeks, because yeah, basically, if you hear the call, we don't have to explain too much. You know that
Exactly.
it's meant for you, and we are not here to promote or market or like oversell anything. We are over that stage. It's like you're feeling attracted by that, you want to be on your throne, then let's do that, you know. So Dylan, where can we find you? If anyone wants to plug into you more, let us know. I will obviously link it as well, but just let us know where we can find you as well.
HumanDesignMaven, one word, on Instagram, hdmaven.com on the World Wide Web, and that should be good. You'll find me.
You'll find him, even if the Pisces is sometimes escaping from the Earth plane.
Well, I might just appear in your dreams and
That's
give you all the
true.
details to the program. So I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you so much. We will speak very soon. And I'm excited to hear what your main takeaways were from this episode and yeah, from this video. And if you feel that collective shift and are excited, or if you're still in fear, then just let us know. And yeah, we will speak very soon.
Bye, everyone.